Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Wednesday to you and yours. Happy hump day. April 16th, 2025. Hope everybody's having a good week. It is a half victory Wednesday. Lightning win last night against the Florida Panthers. Rays unfortunately fall to the Boston Red Sox. We'll take a half. No problem at all. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe as well on YouTube. We're trying to grow bigger, faster, stronger every single day. Then, now, forever. It's like a WWE thing. We will have a WrestleMania roundtable on Friday as well. So 1 o'clock, we're going to have a bunch of guys on. We'll do a nice WrestleMania roundtable like we did with the Royal Rumble as well. But of course, plenty to get into on the program today, including the Tampa Bay Lightning winning and beating the Florida Panthers. What can you take away from that game last night? I know certain people will say, not much. John Cooper will downplay the victory. But I learned a lot from that game last night. A lot. So we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. Also, why is it so good that we're not hearing much from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? The silence is golden. And you look around the National Football League and some of these other teams out there, and just even the Dolphins, man, it's just like there's so much blah, blah, blah. Trading this guy. We like this guy. We got to do better here. Like the best teams do not do their talking right now. We spoke about this last offseason as well. The Atlanta Falcons, everybody was anointing them. Oh, wow, look at these guys. They're going to win the division. They're favorites to win the division, and they might even be able to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't think so. No, not happening. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. 12:30 today, Neil Solondz will stop by. Ray's radio voice to talk about the game last night against the Boston Red Sox. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay came up short, but a valiant effort there at the end. They got Aroldis Chapman in that game. What does Neil think of the start so far, including the hot start from Jonathan Aranda? He has not stopped, and he's making the most of his opportunity. He should be in the lineup every single night. And I don't care if he's going against a left-handed pitcher. He has earned the right to be able to be in that game. So shout out to Jonathan Aranda. He's been fantastic for the Rays so far. 1 o'clock today, Erik Erlendsson joins us for our weekly visits. Talking all things Lightning, what happened last night, going forward. Eric and I, Ed and Cena, a bunch of other guys and gals, we will be headed down to Sunrise. So we will be taking the special announcement here on the program. The Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers, that is the matchup in the first round. The first two games will be at home. It'll probably be Sunday and Tuesday. And then the games, obviously, in Florida and South Florida next week. I will be down there with Erik Erlendsson, with Ed and Cena. So the Recher podcast will be down there next week for games 3 and games 4 of the first round matchup between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. We might have to change the time because I don't want to miss morning skate. We know morning skate is usually second when you're on the road. So if the Lightning's morning skate is around 11:30, we might move the show back to 2 o'clock. We don't know quite yet. That'll just be on game day. So we will let you guys know. We might have to move that around a little bit. And then at 1 o'clock today, we're going to be joined, at 1:30 today, Gabe Rincones is going to join us. Gabe, if you know the name, he is one of the highly touted prospects from the Philadelphia Phillies. And he went to Plant High School here, local kid, and he is just mashing. 3 for 5 last night, batting .293 on the season. And for a team like Philadelphia, you got Bryce Harper, you got Castellanos, you got so many good players there. But to see one of our guys right here in our backyard, to be able to get that opportunity to possibly be in the big leagues at some point this year, I am pulling for Gabe. Great kid, and he's going to join us at 1:30 today. So Got to love that. All right. Again, follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe. And if you want to join in on the conversation, we are taking video calls. Just put the StreamYard link into your device, whether it's the phone or whether it's your laptop. Put it in there. Give us a call. Join us. Get in the chat room, and we'll bring you on, and we'll talk about the topics at hand. Lightning 5, Panthers 1 last night. And we knew going into that game that the Panthers weren't going to play a bunch of their top guys. We know that there was going to be a lot of backups in the game. We knew that. So I didn't think going into that game last night that we were going to know a lot about this team, or we weren't going to learn a lot from this game. But I tell you what, man, I was surprised with how much that we got. I was very surprised by how many notes I kept taking going, all right, we know, and I'm not talking about just clear, like this team's better or the Lightning are going to win because, they won 5-1. It's so much more than that. So much more than that. And I'm going to tell you why. First off, the guys that were in the game for Florida, the guys that will be in the lineup for game 1, they didn't look that great. And I'm talking about the 2 guys that they acquired at the deadline, Seth Jones, first and foremost. I mean, when you watch Seth Jones, does he look like a guy that scares you? I don't look at him and go, wow, the defensive core for the Florida Panthers is so much better because Seth Jones is back there. Listen, he can skate. He's got a great shot. Don't get me wrong. But defensively, in his own zone, he leaves a lot to be desired. He's gotten progressively worse since the last time we've seen him. And it's great to look like, a daffodil in a dead field when you're there, and on other teams that aren't good, like the Chicago Blackhawks. He looks great out there, but defensively, even when the Lightning played him, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't like, wow, if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be fantastic. Last night, turnover, ends up right in the back of his own net. That's a guy that you're going to be counting on. I don't trust him at all. Brad Marchand, another guy, and I know he scored a goal last night. He is clearly not the same guy as he was a couple of years ago. Listen, is he going to score goals on the rush? Does that mean that a guy's skating well? No. But if you look at a guy like Brad Marchand in years past, and there was a play last night where he was able to kind of stick handle around near the Lightning blue line, and he just wasn't able to get away from anybody. His foot speed is gone. We saw that for Team Canada in the Four Nations. We saw it with Boston this year. Listen, his hands are going to be there. His leadership's going to be there. He's going to be in the right spot. His mental game is going to make up for what he's lost physically, but he needs to skate. And if he can't skate and his speed is not an asset, I don't think he's going to be that much of a factor, or as much of a factor as the Florida Panthers initially thought. Now, you look at some of the other guys that they have in the team, like Sam Bennett's a good player. I think he's going to be fine. And we know we didn't see, Reinhart and also Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk. And something that I heard, and I don't know if you've heard this, and I don't know if anybody else has announced this yet, but there was a discussion in the press box last night that Matthew Tkachuk may not be ready for game 1 of the series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I wouldn't be surprised if he missed game 1. He's clearly not 100%. And for a guy that hasn't played since the Four Nations, I mean, you can't think, if you're a Florida Panthers fan, like, I think you're in la-la land. You're in la-la land if you think that you're just going to win this series because you were the Stanley Cup champions last year. Newsflash. Take it from people that have already been in that situation. Last year was last year. This year is this year. And I look at the way that these two teams are put together and how they're playing. And again, it doesn't always correlate as far as like, all right, if you're playing well, you're going to play well in the playoffs. But I'm just talking about their team as it's constructed and how they've played this year. Aaron Ekblad hasn't played in 20 games. You're going to trust that he's going to be able to come back and do the job? Matthew Tkachuk is going to all of a sudden be 100% healthy and going to play a physical contest game 1 on the road in Tampa Bay? I don't know about that. I don't trust Seth Jones. I don't trust Brad Marchand. I don't trust that the depth that they lost, the atrophy, as Greg Wyshynski said on the program yesterday, that happens when you're a Stanley Cup winner, you don't realize until it's too late. And we saw it with the Lightning. We saw it. Yeah, they were able to win 2 cups. They were able to go back to a third. But they didn't win that third. And then after that, what happened? A slew of first-round exits, whether it's to the Panthers or the Maple Leafs. The depth was challenged. And I look at how the Lightning have put this team together. I think not enough people are talking about one guy on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Not enough people are talking about Jake Guentzel. The quietest 41-goal season that you're ever going to see. This is a guy that has scored and played well wherever he has gone, whether it was with Pittsburgh with Sidney Crosby, whether it was with Carolina last year at the deadline, and now here with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It doesn't matter if you put him with Point and Kucherov, or Cirelli and Hagel. The dude just scores and makes smart plays. He turned the puck over once last night, and everybody went, oh my God, like you rarely see that. He's such a smart player. Not enough people are talking about the contributions from Jake Guentzel and what he can do in a playoff series and why. Like, that's another guy that you put in there. You go, okay, that's a guy you didn't have last year against Florida. I was worried about the depth of this team up front. But 2 guys have been added since the trade deadline that I think are going to help in a big way. One of them is Yanni Gourde, and one of them is Connor Geekie. And I want to talk about Connor in a second. Yanni was flying last night. He was all over the place. And if you guys noticed something, did you guys pick up the first 5 or 6 minutes of that game? Florida came out and they tried to bring the intensity of a very physical hockey team. And it was almost just like a little appetizer, a little taste of what playoff hockey is. That first 5 minutes, forechecking and just physical battles back and forth. And it was almost like with the guys that were doing it, like the Mikolas of the world and the Sam Bennett's of the world, guys that are going to be in the game. I'm not talking about guys that won't be in the game, guys that will be in game 1. It was almost a test of like, all right, where are you at, Lightning? Are you guys going to meet us here, or are you going to let us push you over? Or are you going to let us bulldoze you like we saw last year? This team wasn't tough enough. They weren't physical enough. They didn't play defense well enough. They turned the puck over in their own zone. And you saw the Tampa Bay Lightning answer the bell. That's why guys like Lilleberg are in there. He had a couple of real nice hits last night. Mitchell Chaffee, more on him in a second, and our prayers go out to him. He had a physical component to his game. I saw Gage Gonsalves throwing the body yesterday, and then Yanni Gourde flying around like a freaking maniac. That's what he brings. I'm not anticipating that Yanni Gourde's going to go out there and score 12 goals in the playoffs. I could give 2 shits if he does that. Go out there and hit people. He's the smallest guy in the ice with the biggest heart. And his contributions to this team, you saw it a little bit last night, because what he was able to do, he was able to rein that game back in. Oh, last year, you wanted to take liberties physically with the Lightning? Not this time. 37's back. 27's back. And how about J.J. Moser? He's another guy that, again, the Lightning are much better in like 4 or 5 spots than last year. And I don't think you can say the same thing about the Florida Panthers. We're going to take a deep dive into the preview here in a couple of days. But watching that game last night, and of course, there's no Barkov, there's no Reinhart, and I understand Tkachuk is hurt, but the guys that were in the game that are going to play game 1, I just, with the Lightning having home ice advantage, with having a guy like Andrei Vasilevsky who's back on his shit, and then defensively, the focus on defense. That's what I love to see. It's not about how many you score, it's about how many you keep out. And as much as we've been talking about the health and picking up some injuries, great to see Darren Radish back in the lineup last night. And he scored a goal. Fire that puck. I'm always busting his chops about that. Shoot the puck. Shoot the puck. He did that last night. 5 different goal scorers last night. Guentzel, Point, Kucherov, Geekie, and Darren Radish. For some of the injury concerns, you got 7 healthy blue liners. And if you're going to go 11-7, it'll help you at home, but it'll sure as hell help you on the road. I think that the Lightning know where they're at. I think they're happy with their team. And I know somebody in the comment section put something about Isaac Howard. No Isaac Howard. None. Don't worry about Isaac Howard. He's not coming up. I don't think we're going to see him. I think he misplayed his hand grossly. And, if he never plays for the Lightning, that's his loss. Because what do you think is going to be going through the head of Isaac Howard if the Lightning win the Stanley Cup? You think he's not going to care? He's going to be like, damn, did I go about this the right way? Or maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't care. But I trust Julian Breezeball in a situation where if he's got to move the guy, if he's got to go bring somebody else in, he's done it before, he'll do it again. You guys have any comments about the Lightning, feel free. Hop on the link right there, StreamYard.com/WICJVE3EXK. The main focus for the Bolts is going to be health. Healthy. You're going against a team like the New York Rangers tomorrow night. Their season's over. You're going to see a lot of, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, probably their last game in Ranger sweaters. A lot of young guys out there. I think guys are going to be playing for next year. I don't know if hopefully you don't see anything, no more Jacob Trouba there. So I think you should be okay. But don't think you're going to see a bunch of Kucherov. Don't think you're going to see a bunch of Braden Point. You're going to see a lot of probably Jonas Johansson in net. You're going to see a bunch of Mitchell Chafee if he's back in the lineup, a bunch of Gage Gonsalves. And, you can't sit a bunch of guys. Cam Atkinson got called up today because of the injury to Chafee. So you probably see a bunch of Cam Atkinson, Zemgus Girgensons. We did see yesterday at morning skate Luke Glendening out on the ice. So it's a shoulder injury from what we're hearing. So I look at that situation where hopefully he's going to be in there. But I like Zemgus, man. I really do. Poor Zemgus Girgensons. That guy gets so many opportunities to score, and he just can't find the back of the net. But he works so freaking hard. I mean, you look at Zemgus. How many times does he win puck battles? It's insane. Insane. He is such a freaking hard-nosed. He's strong as hell. He's fast. And just, my God, man. I just feel so bad for the guy. Dave Terry, I'm sure you remember our 5-on-5 last year were a whole of a lot better 5-on-5 this year. Yeah. So now, and if you remember the conversation we had with Greg Wyshynski yesterday, you're not so reliant on your power play like we see with the Rangers, right? 5-on-5. Good stuff. Joel, I just hope we can show up our D zone. We can't let the Panthers get up on us early. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. But I look at what the Lightning have been able to do this year as a team. I mean, defensively, they are miles better than they were last year. Miles. So, I'm looking at goals against this year. Okay, and I'm going to show you guys this right here. NHL.com. Share the screen. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at that, guys. The Tampa Bay Lightning, third in goals against. That's how you win. That's how you win in the playoffs. That is why I look at this team and I say they have a much better chance to go deep this year than in years past. That right there. Giving up only 212 goals. And Florida's, this is how they're built too. 223. Okay, let's look at last year. Goals against. Florida was number 1. Where were the Lightning? 23rd. So these are two teams going in opposite directions. Florida Panthers, listen, 198 given up last year, 223. Almost 0.3 of a goal more this year. That makes me feel a lot better when it comes to this team. Making sure they keep the puck out of the net. All right. Before we talk some Buccaneer football, I want to talk about one guy. And the guy to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks is Connor Geekie. Now, 2 things stood out to me about Connor Geekie last night. Number 1, when Jesse Puljujarvi had that cheap-ass dog shit hit on Mitchell Chafee. And I hate that. That kind of hit is such a chicken shit move because you're trying to hit the guy and not hit the guy. You're just trying to clip him, and all you do is shoulder a guy right in his face in open ice. Like, you're not trying to really hit the guy. You're just trying to get it and do it and dip your toe in the water. That's such a bullshit move. I hate that. hate that. There's no room in the game for that, right? You hit a guy, these freaking cheap blindside hits, like there's no room for that. He got a 5-minute match penalty, well deserved. So again, Connor Geekie, first thing, standing up for Mitchell Chafee after taking that big hit. He was the first guy in there. He even got a penalty himself, which, it prevented the Lightning from having a 5-minute power play. It was only a 3-minute power play because he had a 2-minute roughing call, but the Lightning will take that 7 days a week and twice on Tuesday nights. That is a sign of a team sticking up for each other. That's a sign of a cohesive group, and that's a sign of a young kid that gets it. The other thing that stood out to me about Connor Geekie was that he scored his second goal in as many nights, or second goal, he scored his second goal in as many games, and it was how he scored that goal. Connor Geekie, a one-timer off of a Braden Point pass. Kucherov to Braden Point to Connor Geekie. How does that sound to you? Sounds great to me. I want more of Connor Geekie with 21 and 86. I think Connor Geekie is the closest thing to Andre Palat that we have seen since Pally left for New Jersey in free agency. And I think he's got more offensive upside. He's a left-handed guy who's got quick release. He's a big dude, not afraid to play a physical game. I know Yanni Gourde's the guy in that spot right now. But to me, Connor Geekie playing with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, that could be the best line in the playoffs. Because that is going to force that kid to shoot the puck. Keep shooting the puck. He has an incredible release. And when you're playing with Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point, you know that you're going to have open ice and you know you're going to have opportunities to fire the puck on net. So please, John Cooper and the Lightning coaching staff, at some point, I want to see Connor Geekie on a line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. Line 2 will be Hagel and Cirelli and Jake Gensel. Line 3, then you have Yanni Gourde with Nick Paul and Gage Gonsalves, who is just getting better and better every single game. And then your fourth line is some combination of Chafee and Glendening and Gergensons. Maybe if Bjorkstrand comes back, you have maybe a couple of guys in the AHL you can use in the playoffs because then there's no salary cap. It just makes a lot of sense. So again, Coop, staff, Connor Geekie. That's the guy right there. And for all the people that are talking about Isaac Howard, give me Connor Geekie. Give me a guy that's already played in the NHL this season, that's got a body that you're not worried that is going to break down, or a guy that's not going to be able to be defensively responsible in his own zone. Those are questions that we didn't know the answer to when it came to Isaac Howard. But we know that about Connor Geekie. I love it. Love it. Here we go. Which team scares you the most? Dolan wants to know. I'm really not scared of any team in the East. I mean, maybe Washington because there's a lot of good vibes going on, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared of any team. I think the Lightning match up with everybody. Lady Evil, hello. Joel, you get it. You get it. He's got a missile for a shot. And Benny, John Cooper for Jack Adams. Yeah, I don't think he'll win it this year, but he is one of, if not the best coach in the game. He is the best coach in the game. What the hell am I talking about? All right. So one thing I want to point out to you guys is that for all the years that you hear a lot of noise around the National Football League, and listen, NFL is king. We know how highlighted the offseason gets in the National Football League. But when you're a team at this time of the year that is saying less, I think you're in a better chance. I think you're in a better spot in the season ahead. And you look at all of these things you've heard from the last couple of days about, and I just look at the Sunshine State alone. Like the Miami Dolphins, right? They were the sexy pick the last couple of years. You got Jalen Waddle, you got Tyreek Hill, you have all these guys on defense, the glitz and the glamour. Everybody loves Mike McDaniel. All right, great, that's fine. But now all we're hearing is like, all right, well, is Tyreek going to get traded? Now they're going to try to trade Jalen Ramsey. Everybody it just has all these different opinions about Miami. These are not the times you want to make headlines. Chris Greer saying this is a big year for Cam Smith. It's just like, okay. Yeah, you're trying to work to trade Jalen Ramsey. I'm not buying anything that they're selling. Does anybody really think last year was their year? Last year was the year Josh Allen lost his targets. That was the year for you to take a step forward. You got a pretty healthy year out of Tua Tagovailoa, and nothing. The Jets didn't do anything. New England, obviously, still building with Drake May as their quarterback. They're probably going to get better with Mike Vrabel. I don't care about what goes on right now. Don't tell me about all these guys are, all right, well, they interviewed this guy, or they signed this guy, or they traded for this guy, or this is where they are on the power rankings. That doesn't mean two shits to me. What do you hear about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Not much of anything right now. Not much of anything at all. And one thing you do know about the Bucs is the leadership in place. And I go back to the whole Liam Cohen and Todd Bowles thing. Look at how many different opinions, how many different just mindsets, how many different perspectives that you get from just one team. You hear these weird stories about like Dak, I could do this, I could do that. Jerry Jones talking about this and that. It's just like, nobody cares about you guys. Nobody cares about you guys because you don't do it on Sundays. You don't make postseasons. You don't make long playoff runs. And when there's holes in your game and you don't fix them, people are not buying your shit. Joel brings up a great point here. Mike McDaniel's teams don't exude physicality. Spot on. You have to be a team that is going to carry your game on the road. How do you do that? You got to run the football effectively. You got to run the football when they know you're going to run the football. And you have to play good defense. You have to have solid special teams. You have to do things where you're not just going to be able to do it well because you do it at home or because the elements are conducive to what you do well. You have to be able to win games 35-31 and also 17-13. You have to be able to find a way when everything else is going wrong to come out on top. And there's just too many teams out there that the only way that they can be victorious is just if everything is going their way. You have to dig deep, and there's just not enough. And this is kind of a microcosm of sports now, where if things get tough, what happens? People want to transfer. People want to go somewhere else. People want to get traded. People want to get cut. It's just like when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And that's why the same freaking teams are in the playoffs. The same freaking teams go, and even if they have a year where they're out, they get right back in there. Teams like Philadelphia, teams like the Buccaneers, teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, teams like Buffalo, right? Teams like Baltimore. It's one thing to have great players. I understand that. But you have to be mentally tough and mentally strong. And you got to realize that when you have holes, you got to be able to plug them. You got to be able to fix them. If you don't fix them, you're not going to win. Even if you do fix them, there's no guarantee you're going to win. That's the crazy thing about it. You look at the Baltimore Ravens. They went out and they said, all right, we need a primo running back. They went out and got a guy like Derrick Henry. And he was fantastic for them. Still didn't win. Philadelphia Eagles, they looked for a guy like Saquon Barkley, and they did win. These teams out there that try to get a pass rusher or get a linebacker or get a wide receiver, get a quarterback, right? Because obviously we know how important that is. You can make a change in 1 year, but are you going to be able to sustain it? Washington is the biggest question mark going into this year when it comes to that. Incredible run to the NFC Championship game on the arm and the legs of a guy like Jaden Daniels. But let's not forget, you have Dan Quinn, that's been through the rigors of an NFL season. Very well-respected coach around the league. Took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. Don't forget, you bring in a guy like Bobby Wagner, probably a first ballot Hall of Famer, a linebacker, a Super Bowl champion from the Seattle Seahawks. Like, there's certain characteristics and traits that teams have that are successful year in, year out. And it's the ability to put all the excess baggage away, block all of the outside noise out, and to just go out there and play your best every single game. Doesn't always mean you're going to win, But man, if you have that type of mindset and that type of foundation and that type of leadership, I think you're poised for success, and regardless of what sport you're talking about. And I look no further than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're speaking about that in the NFL. And you could say the same thing about the Rays. There are any teams out there that are going to be able to deal with what they're dealing this year. The most unique season maybe we've ever seen in MLB history with them. Other teams may make excuses. They may build in reasons why they aren't going to do so well. I think the Rays have the mental fortitude and the wherewithal to be able to be successful in a season like that. So we'll bring him in. Rays radio voice, our good pal, Neil Solondz joins the program. Hey, Neil, how's it going, buddy?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for joining me. And I was just articulating that point of the Tampa Bay Rays being able to deal with a season like this, right? Going into the year of not knowing what to expect, right? And how do you think they fared so far?
I think they fared reasonably well. I think you'd love for the record to be on the other side of 500, but you're only a game under at this point, and all the teams in the American League East, I think, are separated by 2.5, 3.5 games in total. So it's very early. I think there are a lot of things that I really like about the group and the way they're playing. Especially from a couple of the starting pitchers and a couple of the young players who've taken some steps forward, and hopefully that just continues to feed off itself.
Yeah, talk about Mangum and Meisner. I mean, those two guys. It's every year when baseball starts, you never know who's going to be, like, I won't say the hero, but some of the main characters of the story. The Rays, it's such a great story to be able to see these two guys come up, and they're still hitting. Even though the Rays didn't win last night, they still both picked up hits, and it's a joy to be able to watch them on a day in, day out basis.
They've been a lot of fun, and I just appreciate their stories and where they've come to get to this point. They're not necessarily young guys. Jake Mangum is 29, which for a major league rookie is older. So he doesn't have a lot of big league experience, but he's got a lot of life experience, and he plays the game hard, and he plays the game the right way. And I think he's trying to be nobody but himself, and he feels really comfortable playing the way he's playing. And I think in the case of Cameron Meisner, the thing I've been impressed is just how well he's carried himself and how hard he worked to get here. I mean, he went 1 for 15 last year with 10 punch outs and said, I got to get better. And he talked to his agency after spending a weekend at their training facility in Atlanta the year before and said, I'm going to stay there the whole winter, and I'm going to do everything I can to alter my swing and get it to where it needs to be, which is where his bat is in the strike zone more. And boy, the results have been awesome. I know it's early. The league is for any player, the league is constantly adjusting to you and you're adjusting back. Mm-hmm. But to get these kind of results 2.5 weeks in is certainly super encouraging for both those guys.
Neil, what have you seen from Junior Caminero? I know a lot of people are going into the season with high hopes, and deservedly so. And I look at where he bats in the lineup and how he's in the lineup every day. I mean, he's got broad shoulders. I don't think if there's any struggles, it's because of the pressure. But what have you seen from him being able to watch him game in, game out?
I've seen some moments. I've seen him adjust at times from pitch to pitch, at times from at bat to at bat. And I think, as a young player, you're only going to get better as the year goes on, because I know he puts the work in every single day. That's one thing I heard in spring training. That's one thing that Brady Williams has talked to me about, is that Junior's a worker, just like Jonathan Aranda is a tremendous worker. And I know we'll get to him, but Junior leads the team in home runs. He had a stretch here where he homered in 3 straight days, and 16 games into the season, he had 4 homers. Now, that doesn't mean you could project that out and say he's going to hit 40, because, that's a 10th of the season. But if he hits 25 to 30 home runs this year in his first full year in the big leagues, and gives the Rays, an 800 or so OPS and drives in 80, 85 runs, I think the Rays would take some of that for sure. And I think he will continue to work hard on his defense and hopefully just continue to improve in that area.
You mentioned Jonathan Aranda, and I was so curious. This was a big year for him, because you wonder, there's a lot of guys in the history of baseball where, man, they crush it in AAA, and they can never really get it to go for a full 162 in the big league. They're some of a 4A type of player, and I think Jonathan Aranda could have been falling into that category a little bit, and I was excited to be able to see him get opportunities. And Neil, man, he is making the most of them this year.
He is. And I think that, when folks asked me before the season started, who do you think is going to be the fly under the radar or the guy who's an X factor with his group? I picked Jonathan. And I say that because I didn't look at him in the way that, some may label him. I saw how well he hit. And I also saw him swinging the bat extremely well last spring training, and then he fractured his finger, and then he had an oblique issue. So his season was really marred by injury, and then he finally, I think, got underway the last month and a half last year. And if you look at his last 6 weeks, he was really, really good. In fact, you could argue who's the Rays' best hitter the last 6 weeks. And the beauty is he's carried it over. I think that the first, it's only 2.5 to 3 weeks. It's a very small sample size, but I just love the way he carries his at-bats. It seems like he's in control of the at-bat even when he's down in the count. He's driving the baseball. He's accepting his walk. He's doing all the types of things as a young hitter that you would want to see. And he's been in the organization for 10 years. I mean, this has not been a short journey. When the Rays signed him out of Mexico, they actually were scouting Randy Arozarena in Mexico. He ended up signing with the Cardinals and obviously was traded to the Rays at some point. But they developed him from the time he was 16, and here a decade later, he's really starting to blossom. And, I hope it continues on this path.
Yeah, I love to see it. Love to see him swinging the bat that way. Neil, what's the big adjustment that you've seen from the players when it comes to playing at Steinbrenner Field? I mean, the ball's been flying out. We see a couple of home runs that maybe shouldn't have been home runs. I mean, it's every night. You just don't know what you're going to see. You don't know what you're going to hear. Like last night. I mean, what's that been like? And as far as the adjustment for the players?
I think that the important thing is to try not to be too different. I think that Taj Bradley and Shane Baz and Drew Rasmussen all showed if you make really good pitches, you're going to have success no matter what the dimensions of the ballpark are. And I think the important thing to try and do is not to try and get outside yourself. Because what happens when that occurs, especially on the mound, is you end up getting either in 2-0 or 3-1 or just advantage counts. And the Rays so emphasize the importance of getting ahead. I think that will be the constant adjustment for this group, is making sure whatever you see, stay with your process. And I think from a pitching standpoint, from a hitting standpoint, I don't know that I've seen any Rays player really get too big. I've been encouraged by the fact that, let's say, that the guys who don't hit the home run ball, like Jake Mangum and Taylor Walls, have been putting the ball on the ground and trying to hit line drives. And I don't think any of the other hitters, whether it's Aranda, Brandon Lau, Yandy, I don't think any of them are trying to get too big. I think you just have to keep your approach and pass the baton and have good at bats. And if you continue to do that, they've scored 28 total runs the last 3 games. You're not going to average 9 a game the rest of the year, but I think hopefully you just believe in the next guy and you just have a good at bat every single moment you're up there.
Neil, what do we know as far as when we can see Josh Lowe, Shane McClanahan, and Hassan Kim?
That's a good question. I think they're all progressing. The closest guy to actually coming back is Richie Palacios.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Richie's been rehabbing he rehabbed in Montgomery over the weekend. He continued his rehab in Durham yesterday. And I almost think right now he's a day-to-day situation where he could be activated. I mean, today they're facing a lefty starter in Sean Newcomb, so you're not going to see him activated yet. I'm not sure the Yankee rotation when Rodon and Fried come up in the 4-game set against New York. But I would assume it won't be long before we see Richie added back to the roster. And, I think people also forget what an important player he was for the Rays, because he could play second base, third base, 3 outfield spots. He was super at stealing bases. He worked a lot of walks and had a lot of quality at bats. We know how right field plays in this ballpark, that, for left-hand hitters, you might hit a couple more out. I don't think that's necessarily his game, but I think, he's going to bring a lot of energy to the group. And, I think that the important thing for this team is they're not worrying about who's not here. They're taking advantage of who is. And I think perfect example is that when the Rays slotted Joe Boyle into the rotation on Sunday, and he gave him 5+ hitless innings against, a Braves lineup that I still think is going to be pretty darn good when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's still weird to look at their numbers and to see how bad they were. But, man, talk about Joe Boyle. We were watching that at the Amalie Arena, and it was just like he had some heavy stuff. The bottom was just falling out of everything. And to listen to Brian Snicker after the game go like, yeah, we knew him as a guy that walked a bunch of people, but he wasn't walking anybody against us. That's the Rays get their hands on a guy like that with just such electric stuff. And Neil, I think that Braves could have been hitting against him for 35 innings, and I don't think they would have been able to touch him.
He had great stuff. And we got to see that in spring training up close. When the Rays acquired him in the Jeffrey Springs deal, and the other players they're acquired, I think are going to be pretty good too over time. I heard the comps to a Tyler Glasnow, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty. And we saw Joe last year. He threw 6 shutout against the Rays, and I heard the same thing. Oh, he doesn't throw enough strikes, and I mean, all he did was pound the zone. And I think the thing I heard when Tyler came over from the Pirates was he doesn't throw enough strikes. He's not in the zone enough. And I heard the same about Joe, but I watched him in spring training and saw stretches where he was throwing strikes. And I still think it's a development in progress, but I don't think there's any doubt that the stuff is good enough to be at the top of a rotation. He's got 3 quality pitches. I mean, his fastball's 98 to 101, and it moves. I mean, it naturally cuts. He's got a splitter in the 93 to 95 area. He's got a slider that moves a ton. If he's able to start you with strike one, he's going to be super, super tough to deal with. And I think he just gives the Rays a really big piece as he develops going forward. And let's just hope that he continues to evolve in a positive way throughout the year. And he can become a real horse in the Rays rotation, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of that, the one guy that's really stood out to me this year is Shane Baz. It's one thing to get hitters out. It's another thing to strike out as many guys as he has, and also not to walk anybody, Neil. Mm-hmm. And I'm so impressed because he's another guy. You wonder, all right, we know how we got here in the big trade, right? He's the last guy still here. Heck, even Archer came back after the deal. But Shane Baz, I'm wondering, like, all right, what kind of stuff does he have this year? Where is he at? Because I think we all ideally would think, all right, well, he's a top of the rotation guy, but how high, right? How high is that ceiling? Because we haven't seen a full 162 games. He's always dealing with a little bit of here, a little bit of there. I think we spoke about this last time, or maybe it was with Topper, of like, this was the first time, I think, since 2020 that he was on the opening day roster. Like, it's 2025. It's crazy. And the guy's got such incredible talent. But watching him, Neil, I feel like he is a guy that the only guy who has maybe better stuff out of the starting rotation might be Shane McClanahan. If he pitches like this, I wouldn't be surprised to see Shane Baz as an all-star this year. What have you seen from him, and do you agree with that sentiment?
If he's healthy, yes.
Right.
I think for me, the big question with any starter, can he make 30 starts?
Right.
Can he go the distance? And right now, the Rays just started their 4th time through the rotation. So everybody has made 3 or 4 starts so far. So for me, it's probably a little bit premature to start putting all that weight or that heaviness of all-stars or how good he can be. But the work ethic has been outstanding. I know that. I think that he's been really thoughtful in his approach. I talked to him at the beginning of spring training about what he wanted to accomplish, and he wanted to use his legs more and felt that would, allow him to see even a little more velocity and a little more command and control. And so far we've seen that. I think the tweaks that he's made have worked. I would also put Boyle in the category of stuff just because of how good it is. In Shane's case, I just want him to continue to stay healthy and grow because he's got 4 pitches. And I thought the last start against Boston, I thought 3 of them were elite. I mean, the fastball's now touching 100, probably more often than not, 97, 98. The curveball has been his best pitch. I really think that offering has evolved into early in the count strike pitch and then the swing and miss pitch when he needs it. And I thought his changeup really started to come in the last start too. That's what stood out to me. He throws the slider occasionally off that curveball. But, for me, if his changeup develops, it just opens up more avenues for him to get guys out. So I like all of the Rays starters for different reasons. I think they all can be, super helpful. And to this point, I think the big thing is when you're playing as many games as they are consecutively, 13 in a row at home, by and large, they're eating a fair amount of innings, which is going to take pressure in this first month off the bullpen and hopefully that also pays dividends as we go into May, June, July, August.
Neil, is there any pressure, maybe not internally, maybe externally, or just like, is there any, maybe pressure is probably too strong of a word, but is there any like hyper focus on like, there's a lot of home games here. We got to take care of business before because we know how wonky the schedule is this year.
Mm-hmm.
And MLB did a really good job to try to make it so that there's not a ton of rainouts. Like it's just a unique season. Is there a focus on that for the team of like, hey, we got to take care of business at home here. Let's really utilize some of this home cooking because we know it's not going to be like this in a month or so?
I think regardless of the schedule, they would feel, hey, we want to get off to a really, really good start. Right. I mean, you got all those home games, in the first 60, it's like 37 out of 59 or something like that. I think when you get to the end of that point, you want to be above 500. You probably want to be in a good spot above 500. The way I look at it is after that, you're going to be playing more road games. So you got to become also a good team on the road. You don't have to be a great team. I think if you look at the really good teams in this league, they win 2 out of 3 at home. They play 500 ball on the road. And that will get you in that 90 win category in that postseason hunt and conversation, probably into the playoffs. So this team is 8-6 at home right now with five to go on this homestand. If you win at least 3 of the next 5, 11, and you're winning almost 60% of your home games, you're starting to get into that area. And then hopefully you play well on the road and then start to carry it over. Sometimes that first 15, 20 games, you're almost trying to find it's almost like a boxer. I look at it in the first couple of rounds, you're kind of feeling everything out. And also remember, I think 2 years ago, the Rays got off to that amazing 13-0 start with a lot of those games at home. But they also played a month at Tropicana Field because of the issues in Port Charlotte and had their spring training moved to Tropicana Field. So they were playing at their home for a month before that season. Here, you didn't even have more than a day or two to get adjusted. And I think as we go, this group is going to get better and better, taking advantage of their home field. And I think, hey, you could argue that the road could be a super advantage for the pitching staff because they'll go from a ballpark where home runs, were aplenty to maybe, you go to San Diego with the way things can carry at night with, at night, sometimes you'll have that marine layer, which will knock down the baseball, and they'll probably feel like they're pitching at Tropicana Field again. So, that place may be a huge boost. So there may be times on the road where they fare really well too. And hopefully, let's play well, see this group play well tonight and in the Yankee series, and then start to take it on the road and carry that over.
Neil, before I let you go, any surprises in the AL East from what we've seen so far? I mean, I know a lot of people have been, picking Baltimore. I was very unimpressed by the lack of effort they put into kind of fortifying their starting rotation, relying on a lot of those young position players. What about you when you look at this AL East? Anything stand out to you?
I try not to get too far ahead based on 15 to 20. I am surprised at Baltimore where they're at, but they also lost Zach Eflin to injury too, and that doesn't help them. I look at when they were good a couple of years ago, when they got to the postseason for the first time, they weren't getting a lot from their rotation. It was like 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 innings, 4 runs, 6 innings, 3 runs, but their bullpen was so good. And so far, they haven't even got that from their rotation, and their bullpen hasn't been as good. So I still think they're a dangerous team. I think Boston's talent is super dangerous. The 2 teams under 500 or 3 teams under 500 could all flip-flop this division in like a month. I could definitely see that. I think that the beauty of a 162 game schedule is it kind of weeds all these things out. And, that's why I kind of enjoy this week, getting to see the Rays play some of the division foes. And, yesterday we saw what impact an Alex Bregman can have. Good luck to him and his wife, since they're having a baby and he's not going to be there for the game tonight. And if he wants to miss a couple of games in the next series the Rays play in Boston in June, I'd probably be okay with that too, since that's going to be at Fenway where he seems to love to hit. But, I think all the teams in this division are dangerous. I think it's the only division for me where all 5 teams can make the playoffs.
Agreed. And I think the series this weekend is going to be so crazy. The Yankees in town, like it's just going to be. We know that there's always a large contingent that goes to the games, and now at Steinbrenner Field, it's just going to be. I think it's going to be very like intense. I think it's going to be an intensity of the game. There's going to be a hey, this is our home park, right? What do you anticipate for that this weekend? I don't know if we've ever seen anything like that.
I think it's probably not going to be much different than all Yankee and Rays games. I mean, I think they want to beat one another, just like all division games. I think the guys will play with, the same intensity they've brought the last two nights. That's the thing that stood out to me even yesterday in a 7-4 loss. The way they carried themselves, the way they played the game until the last out, they forced Aroldis Chapman to have to come into what was a 7-2 game going into the ninth inning to even have him come in. It's not a win. You don't take moral victories from losses in this game. But every time you force that guy into a game, you see him one more time. You give yourself a better chance of winning tonight, probably. That's why Ryan Pepio going 6 innings despite allowing 6 runs was so important for this group. I thought that helped save the bullpen for the next 5 days a little bit, or at least for tonight. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to tonight first, and hopefully a series win to get you some momentum going into that set.
You got that right. Neil Solondz, Rays Radio voice. Give our love to Andy and Chris and everybody over there. You're the man, Neil. Thank you so much for your time, man, making the show a whole hell of a lot better. Have a great rest of your week, man. Talk soon.
Anytime. Take care.
Thanks, pal. Neil Solondz, man, all over it. Yeah, I love what he said about the Rays and how they were able to get to Aroldis Chapman last night. I might be in the minority. I probably am. I do take moral victories. I too take silver linings. I think life is hard, man. I think life is hard. And I think there's more. It doesn't mean I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean I'm okay with it before the fact. But after the fact, right? If you don't lose, you learn, right? You don't lose, you learn. So for me, I feel too many times in sports, we look at it as like, well, if you didn't win, that's it. You didn't win at all. I'm like, I don't know if that's real. Because now, if Aroldis Chapman goes into that game today and he's struggling, come on, man. If he goes into the game today and he gives up the booty, maybe you could look back at yesterday and say, wow, them getting him in the game paid dividends. Baseball's different in that aspect than any other sport, because if you look at the 162 game schedule, sometimes that's what it's all about. Getting a guy in there, going to the closer. You never know when it's going to pay dividends. Postseason as well, 7-game series. You get a guy up in game 1 of the series, or that may help you in game 4 or game 5. Yeah, you didn't win, but did that mean that you didn't take anything from it? Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. Really, really good stuff there from our pal Neil Solondz. Let's take a look at, the game last night against 7-4. Walker Buehler with the win, Ryan Pepio with the loss. And, tonight's game 7:05 there at Steinbrenner Field. Sean Newcomb, the lefty, 0-2 with a 4.97 ERA. He will take on Zach Littell, 0-3 with a 6.88 ERA. And Zach Littell, he's looking to bounce back, but too many more outings like this, I feel like we're getting into Aaron Savali territory, where it was like, all right, you're holding on, you're giving him opportunities, giving him more opportunities, and you can't keep throwing the ball like this. You can't keep throwing the ball like this and thinking you're going to be successful. So especially when you have Boyle and you have hopefully Shane McClanahan coming back sooner rather than later, pitching and defense needs to be your bread and butter. And if that's the performance that you're putting out so far, just let's look at what he's done so far this year. All right, in his 3 starts so far, in the opening series against Colorado, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run. Not too bad there, 1 earned run. But the last 2 in Texas, 7 innings pitched was good. He's given the team some length. 6 hits, 5 earned runs. And then the last outing against the Angels, no bueno. 4 innings pitched, 8 hits, 7 earned runs. You got to do better than that. You have to do better than that if you're going to be successful in the big leagues. Let's see. Any breaking news here? looking at looks like Con Kneppel. If you're just joining us, Con Kneppel, the star guard for Duke, he is entering the NBA draft. No surprise there. So you probably see Malawach. You know you're going to see Cooper Flagg, and now you're going to see Con Kneppel. Duke could have 3 top 10, top 15 picks in the NBA. Not bad at all. Charlie Ward, former Heisman Trophy winner, hired as the head coach of FAMU. So congratulations to Charlie Ward, one of my favorite players of all time. Charlie Ward, huge fan of his. That's kind of the reason why I like Florida State. I know it's kind of weird, but he was the point guard for the Knicks. So I love that freaking guy, man. He was awesome. Jeff Taylor. Jay, when are the JR podcast t-shirts coming? They're coming, man. We're working at it. Once everything kind of settles down a little bit with the Tampa Bay Lightning playoffs, once I get that all settled, I'm in the middle of a move too. So I'm actually moving in a couple of weeks. So not leaving Tampa, just going to a different place in Tampa. So again, these are the reasons why the support is huge. Like, subscribe, share this on your social media. If you want to endorse and be a partner of the J Recher podcast, hit me up, man. And our guy, Honest Hammer, he's going to be our first partner. We're working on that. We're going to start that on May 1st. So Honest Hammer, our guy, Russ, such a great guy. So he's going to be our first. We got some other kind of irons in the fire, and we'll work that out. And we'll have some JR podcast t-shirts coming. We need to come up with some good slogans too. I don't want to just say kind of the J Recher podcast. We're going to have something on the front. Got the van ready for the move. Let me know when and where. Good luck. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, buddy. Make sure you guys follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Hit me up on LinkedIn as well. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We got over 1,200 subscribers. We're going to keep it going, trying to get to 2,000. We did a great job getting to 1,000. We got to get to 2,000 now. That's what my nephew Lawson says. Am I moving into Emily? David Terry says. No. Maybe. Closer to Emily. Not into Emily. So as far as what we know right now, we were thinking Sunday or Monday. Hey, look at Sean Thomason in the house. Hello from Atlanta. Hey, Sean. Thanks so much for joining the program today here on the J Recher podcast. Appreciate you. As far as we know, and if you listen to John Cooper yesterday, thank you, Lady Evil. She wants a shirt too. As far as that goes, John Cooper said it twice yesterday. He said Sunday that, I'm sorry, brain freeze. Sunday would be the game. I don't know if that's a Freudian slip. I don't know if he's legit. I don't know what, but he thinks that the game's going to be on Sunday. I think they had an idea of like, all right, everything was going to work out the way it worked out. They're going to face Florida in the first round. Really, really good stuff there. I want to play this for you guys. This is head coach John Cooper. Actually, you know what? First, let's play this. This is from Kay Adams up in I'm just watching. I'm going to watch that later. I'm not going to post that on the show, but this is what John Cooper had to say last night. And we're going to play this before Erik Erlendsson gets to us. This is John Cooper from last night's postgame about pretty much everything that happened. I don't know if you guys heard it, but he answered a lot of different questions. I thought this was one of his better press conferences. Here's John Cooper from the game, or from the postgame last night.
2 points for us and proof why Cooch should be in basket. Really good chance to win the Vesna. Heading up for the Norris. A lot of good players doing good things. That's a nice help.
What have you seen from Yanni? I mean, he on that line with Point and Kucherov makes a great point. Pass to Kuch for the goal there. What about his game? Has any of it changed? Has it gotten developed, or has it evolved since the first time he was here?
Yanni is like, he's just a ball of energy, and he plays. What's the line in The Grinch? When his heart grows. What is it? Yeah, but it grows to become really big. Yeah,
Got it.
You guys can play that and see. When his heart gets huge. Yeah. That's Yanni.
This might be a little early to ask you this, but obviously, like the start of the season, you guys had new leadership, just a new team that you built, and now you're here at the end of the regular season. Any takeaways, like initial takeaways for you on this team and what you guys have kind of gone through this year?
Well, actually not pretty sure. I know there's a lot of question marks of what this team is going to look like. We lost a cornerstone of our organization, and I think there was a ton of uncertainty of how things were going to play out. And if you look back to then to now, and we have 100+ points. Not only did we make the playoffs, we found a way to get home ice, and our special teams ended up top 5, top 6. We beat both of them. Our defensive game, we went from a mediocre defensive team to one of the best in the league. I can just check a whole bunch of boxes of it's pretty impressive what this team's accomplished. Now, again, that's through 81 games, and we put ourselves in a position to vie for a Stanley Cup. There was 32 teams, there's only 16 left. We're one of the 16. That's what we wanted to do, and I think every year we get looked at as okay, their time's over. And every year these guys come back and prove they can do it. So it's been amazing to be a part of for over a decade, and hopefully this group wants to make many more memories. We have memories ahead of us to make, and so I'll excited to see what we do in this playoffs.
Any thoughts on the hit on Chafee and if there's going to be any after effects?
Any thoughts on it? Watch it. So that's an unfortunate situation. He's probably going to get suspended.
I feel like that might be a sign of things to come as this series begins. In terms of intensity.
I'm not going to stir any pots here. Series failed, I don't play no.
And we bring in Erik Erlendsson. We had to ask it. We had to ask the question about Mitchell Chafee and the hit. And I just thought it was really funny that me and Corey were the last two, and he was like, "Come on, you guys." We had to ask it though. I mean, it's a big hit, and I look back and I wanted to look at the hit again today, day after. Am I looking at it? Am I being too, homerish, right? Am I looking at it through the Bolts lens? I think the hit looked worse today than when I saw it last night. I was like, oh, he just grazed him. And then today, when I saw the close up, he really got him in the head. Like, that was no joke. That was not at first I thought it was like, oh, it's just a glancing blow and it was a precaution. But I mean, Puljujarvi, he got him pretty good, man. And the fact that, I know John Cooper is going to downplay it, but it is a foreshadowing of things to come, because I feel like whether it's Sunday, whether it's Monday, this is going to be a very physical series right out of the gates.
Well, first the hit, it was reviewed and they upgraded it from a 5-minute major to a match penalty, and a match penalty is for intent to injure.
Right.
And I saw somebody in my Twitter feed last night. How can anybody judge intent? Go look at Puljujarvi's eyes.
Yeah.
He squared him up, and that's why that was upgraded to intent to injure. I mean, he made no attempt to avoid that contact. Like he I don't want to say purposely, but he went right after him. He knew what he was doing. And, when I looked at it a second time in slow-mo, it looks 1,000 times worse in slow-mo, because that's when you can see he turns his head, he looks, and then he leans in. So it's a bad hit. It's going to get suspended, but Florida doesn't care. Puljujarvi wasn't going to play in this series anyway. In fact, he's already been reassigned to Charlotte, right? That was the last game for Florida last night, as they sat a lot of their regulars. So he's not even going to be a factor in the playoff series. So, I equate it to, the kid at a senior year soccer game says, watch, I'm going to get a red card because I don't care. It's my last soccer game. Puljujarvi is a guy who was a very high draft pick who's trying to find a way to stay in the league because his offense ain't doing it, which is what he was drafted for. So I was surprised after the second period last night to look up and see he led the Panthers in hits. So he's trying to make a name for himself to stay in the league, to even get in the league. I mean, he's been rotated around to team after team after team since he was drafted. But again, he's going to get a suspension, but he might never see the NHL again. So, it's not going to is that going to set the tone for the series? I mean, it's going to be a physical series. There's no doubt about it. And you look at the game in December that the Lightning won down there 4-0 and how they tried to run the Lightning out of the building in that game. I mean, AJ Greer was running around trying to hit anything and everything in that game. And, they had a couple other guys running around doing it as well. So it's going to be physical. But I don't know if that hit has anything. I don't know if there's going to be any carryover because that player's not even going to be on. He's not even going to be on the ice with the Panthers at all.
Yeah, how do you retaliate to a guy that's not going to be
right? So, and you wouldn't want to do that anyway. You want to, you'll park that one in the back of your mind, and the next time you see him on the ice, no matter which team he's playing for, if he even makes it back to the NHL, then you deal with it at that point. But it was a bad hit. It was a very bad hit, and again, the Panthers ended their regular season. He's not even here anymore. But as far as the series goes, Florida, that's the way Florida plays. They want to play a tight physical game, and they feel, having been the little brother to the Lightning for so long, they feel now like they are the little brother that got stronger and wants to beat up their older brother. So that's what they're going to try and want to turn this series into a little bit because – intimidation is still a part of the game. And if you can make guys think twice about going into the corner, I mean, there's a lot of mind games that go on in a playoff series, and that's going to be part of the mind games that Florida is going to want to play.
Yeah, and I look at the team. We talk about defensively. I showed these stats before. I don't know if you saw them, but the Florida Panthers gave up 25 more goals this year than they did last year. Last year, they were number one in the league, only giving up 198 goals, tied with the Jets. This year, they went down to 7th in the league. Still pretty good, 223 goals. And you look at the inverse of that. You look at what the Tampa Bay Lightning last year, 23rd in the league, giving up 267 goals. They're third in hockey this year, 212. I just look at both these teams. I feel like defensively, going in two different directions compared to last year. How much do you put into that? How much stock do you put into the Lightning's defensive focus going into the season and how that can pay dividends in the series against Florida?
It's definitely been a commitment. There's no doubt about it to playing better. Ryan McDonough's presence factors a lot into it. They feed off of a lot of McDonough's, what he can do and what he's capable of doing and why he's such a good defensive defenseman. But you also look at, take that one step further, and the improvements that certainly the Lightning have made 5-on-5 this year. I mean, their goal differential and, the number of goals they've given up 5-on-5, it's a drastic turnaround. But I think the Panthers have actually given up fewer 5-on-5 goals than Tampa Bay. It's close, and the Lightning still have one more game to play. But it's that's where this series is going to take place. It's going to be 5-on-5. We know that for the most part, whistles go away. Now you tend to see a few more early in the playoffs. And, I remember game one in 2021, where how many power play goals did the Lightning score in game one of that series? And I think Kucherov had, 3 power play points in his first game back after missing the entire season. So it does happen on occasion, but this is going to be a 5-on-5 series. And it's going to be every inch of ice is going to be very difficult to find. Both teams are going to have to work at it. And, Florida's comfortable playing 2-1 games. The Lightning not quite as comfortable doing it. I think I've used this stat several times this year. I think they're 1-18-3 when scoring fewer than 3 goals. They've lost a lot of 2-1 games, even with all the offense that they have. but they're going to have to find ways to have that mentality in this series because Florida's going to drag them down into the mud, and you're going to have to be comfortable getting dirty. And I don't mean dirty as in Jesse Puljujarvi dirty.
Yeah, I know. 139 goals given up for the Panthers 5-on-5, 141 for the Lightning. So yeah, 2 more for the Bolts. What did you learn from the game last night that you can take over? I know there isn't a ton of things, but I looked at a couple of things. I don't trust a guy like Seth Jones back there. I think he turns the puck over way too much for a guy that they're going to depend on a lot. I think Brad Marchand's clearly not as fast as he once was, and the rise of Connor Geekie. I other than that, I don't know if you can really take much out of that game. But is there anything else that you took out of that game last night, knowing that Florida didn't have a bunch of their horses out there?
Well, I took into factor what Yanni Gourde can do. Right, he was a presence in that game last night. Obviously the 2 assists, great passes. It shows that he can still play with the top guys, right? Playing with Point Kucherov for the last couple of games. And I mean, the pass he made to Braden Point was spectacular to send it to area, and then listening to him talk about it and how all of that went through. I love getting insight from players in situations like that, talking about how he thought Moser was going to send the pass, but then Moser gave him the pass, and then he kind of knew where he was, and he kind of felt he knew where Braden Point was going to be. He didn't realize Pointer was there. Mm-hmm. He thought he was, so he just sent it to a space into which he could get it to. I mean, it's just fascinating insight into a player's mind on the ice, because we know the game moves so fast. But his forechecking, I mean, he's a forechecking demon, right? And I think that's why he can play with Point and Kucherov, because he's a guy who can go and get the puck. On the buildup to Kucherov's goal, the one where Gourde passed it to him, Point won the puck, found Gourde in the slot, and he fed Kucherov wide open at the post. Yanni Gourde, you could see the tenacity. He went right after the guy for the puck, separated both the man and the puck from the play, and the Lightning were able to, keep that puck in the zone. So, those are the factors that Yanni Gourde can bring to this lineup, and the versatility that he can bring. Connor Geekie's confidence is through the roof right now. I mean, that shot, it's a great pass by Braden Point, but it was a little bit in his feet. Mm-hmm. So he had to make that adjustment and pull the stick in a little bit, but he still found a way to wire off a one-timer. I mean, that was a fantastic adjustment and a great shot. You hope that confidence continues to move forward here starting this weekend. Other than that, I don't know how much you can say. I think they managed the puck pretty well. There weren't too many moments where you're like, we're a couple. They have to clean that up. And, you especially look at some of the other games on this homestand where just some god-awful passes, just god-awful turnovers. I mean, I can still hear Chiefs say, "What do you look at?" So, I can imagine what Phil was saying on the air on the radio broadcast as well. So they cleaned some of that up, and that's what they have to do. Florida is a team that wants you to make a mistake. They wait for you to make a mistake, and they pounce. They're going to grind you down, make you make a mistake, and then take advantage of it because they have the skill, right? The Reinhardts and the Verhaeghes and the Barkovs. I mean, they get guys that can score goals if you let them. So, and Florida's a very good forechecking team. Can you get out of your own zone cleanly? They did that last night, but again, it wasn't Florida's. It was basically half their AHL team. Right. So how much can you take out of how quickly they get out of the zone? Because there's a big difference if it's Puljujarvi coming in on the forecheck and if it's Sam Reinhart coming on the forecheck, right? So I don't know that we can take much out of the way that the game was played, but I look at the way Gourde played. I look at the way Geekie played. Those type of things you hope continue to factor moving forward. Having said that, now they're banged up. I've never seen this before, a team that's been relatively healthy through the entire season, and then you get major injuries literally right at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't know what Glendenning's status is. He did skate yesterday. Obviously, he's not going to play tomorrow. We'll see what his status is for game one. Losing Bjorkstrand is big. Look, 4 straight games, they had a player leave due to injury, right? Glendening got hurt against Toronto. Bjorkstrand played up until the third period of the game against Detroit. Radish left the game against Buffalo, missed the entire third period. And then Chafee last night. And, I assume Chafee's going to miss some time too, because that was a pretty brutal blow to the head. They've already called up Cam Atkinson, so like they went into last night with 11 forwards and Chafee got hurt. Now they're back to 11. Right. So it's a tough challenge for them to overcome, but they're going to have to overcome it.
What do they do, Eric, in game one if Chafee can't go?
It's a good question. Syracuse finishes up their season this week, and they have a game tonight against Hershey, and they close Friday, Saturday with the home and home against Utica. And they're pretty much in. They're still battling for seeding. They can finish anywhere from 3rd to 5th in their division, but they're going to make the playoffs as well. So their postseason will start, next weekend. I don't know. The fact that Cam Atkinson hasn't played much down the stretch, do you put him in the playoffs? I don't know that you can. So do you look to Syracuse? Do you bring up a Dylan Duke? Right? Do you insert him into a fourth line role? Well, we'll see what Jack Finley's health, right? The 6'6" center. He made his NHL debut early this year. He's been banged up again. That poor kid has had all kinds of injuries throughout his career. Connor Sheary, probably not Connor Sheary, but he's had a great year for Syracuse. He's a great mentor for Connor Geekie. I had a chance to talk to Geekie yesterday about the relationship he has with Sheary. So Sheary's been great in helping, Geekie kind of get through this part of his career. Roster limits go away once the postseason starts. No salary cap considerations once the postseason starts. So I would have to think that they're going to bring up at least one player, because I don't think you want to go in with just 11 forwards on your roster. I think you want to have the opportunity to dress 12, even though I think they're going to go 11-7 because they've been running it for basically the past month.
Yeah, Gabriel Dumont, I think, is another guy too who's had experience.
He's not on an NHL contract. He's on an AHL only contract.
Even in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Oh man, that sucks for him. Who would have been really good right now?
Don't say it. Don't say
it. How have we got here? How have we gotten to this point with the Isaac Howard situation where I feel like if this dude was just patient for a freaking week, dude, 7 days, this could have been completely different. This could have been the perfect time to call him up. I don't know if it's his representation or what. He wants to go and do podcasts, Barstool, and do all these different things. You want to talk about going back to Michigan State? Like, what went wrong here?
I think it came down to, and he's only made one comment publicly on this, right? What he said, it just didn't work out for him in Tampa. They didn't see whatever the phrase was, eye to eye. And basically the eye to eye means that the Lightning wanted him to at least start in Syracuse because they didn't have the cap space. They did not have the cap space to bring him up, or we wouldn't be talking about this. It'd have been done, and he'd have been here, whether playing or not. He'd have been here.
But why don't they know that? That's the crazy thing.
They do know that.
But you know what I mean? But so the fact that you're surprised and acting like you didn't see eye to eye, like what is there to see eye to eye about? It's not like they control how much the salary cap is. I don't understand that.
Well, they do control their cap, right? And when they made the trade for Bjorkstrand and Gord, that really limited their opportunities to be able to like they couldn't even call up anybody. Right. Like, and look, there's a number of call ups that you're limited to as well. Right. Like, Atkinson was reassigned and brought back up twice. So there's 2 recalls. Geekie was a 3rd, and now Atkinson is the 4th again. So you are limited in that aspect as well. But I think it just comes down to, they wanted to send him to Syracuse for at least a little bit. And then without, you can't make a promise that we'll call you up, but that probably would have been the idea, because all along they knew that maybe for the final 2 games, they would have the available cap space to make a recall. And you're right. I don't know if it just came down to the patience. I don't know if, what was it Elliott who said that basically he told the Lightning, I can make more in NIL money than I can going to the AHL. Does that factor into his decision? Does he get ticked off because of that? I would hope not, because, it's not about the first couple of weeks of your pro career. It's about your pro career. So, it's disappointing. There's no doubt, and it was a week ago. We were kind of talking our way through it as it kind of broke through while we were in discussion here. And again, I don't think the door is closed. I think it's slightly
Really?
ajar. I
You
think
think
it's
there's a
slightly.
chance?
Look, all it takes is a change of heart. All it takes is one phone call.
When is this? After the season, right?
It could be today. Could be tomorrow.
Really?
It could be. I don't think
So
it's
you
going to
think-
happen, but it could be.
So there could be a chance. So you're saying there's a chance?
He, the most likely scenario is that his name gets bannered about at the draft.
Yeah, and he gets traded.
And you try and move him. But it's disappointing because it's been a long time since they've had a prospect that they've been as high on as they are on Isaac Howard. It's been a long time since we've talked about one of the prospects in their system because they've been so good for the past decade and they move all their first round draft picks. And essentially this is the one guy that they kind of kept a hold of. Didn't trade him at the trade deadline, right? We talked about it was a win at the deadline because they didn't have to move a Howard or a Duke or any of other players that they're pretty high on in the system. But they've also never had a college prospect like this. And the NCAA college hockey is a much more viable development system for players than it was 10, 12, 15 years ago. Right? Like guys could win the Hobie Baker in the NCAA 15 years ago. They might not even make the NHL.
Right.
Now you see the Cale Makars come out of college, the Johnny Gaudreaus come out of college. It certainly started with Paul Correa, kind of set that tone and showed what, college hockey could do for players. And so they've never had this type of a high level college prospect. And the way it works with college prospects, I think we talked a little bit about this last week, is they get to their third year and it's time to turn them pro because they get to that fourth year, they can be unrestricted free agent next August, right? So this was the timeline all along. And the fact that they couldn't get it done and they couldn't bring him in at this point in time to start his career because he's got electrifying offensive skills, something that they lack in the system because they just haven't had high draft picks. It's just the price of winning. And they couldn't get it done to bring him in. And that's disappointing. But again, the door's not closed. But it's only slightly ajar.
Not good. Not good, man. I wish he was just a little bit more patient. Maybe we should just send him a gift basket or something. Maybe we send him a subscription to lightninginsider.com. Maybe that'll make him turn the tide.
And just sign it best wishes JBB.
Yeah, right? I mean, how does Julian look? And, we look at it so much from give Julian the benefit of the doubt, but is there any thought process of Julian making a mistake here? Because, some people do look at the way that he handled the Steven Stamkos situation. Remember, Stammer said it that day. No talk, no representative reached out to my people. We didn't talk at all in the offseason. Regardless, I'm not talking about them not bringing it back. I'm just talking about the
way it was handled.
Before. Yeah. Is this one of those things where you have to look at it now like, hey, maybe Julian needs to take a look at how he handles certain things and certain people because this could be thrown in that same category?
It's possible, right? But Julian hasn't made many mistakes in his tenure, right? Every trade except for Tanner Jeannot has worked out pretty solidly in their favor. I mean, even going back to last year when, they brought in Duclair and Dumba, that didn't get them where they wanted to go, but, Dumba was a factor in the playoffs and Duclair helped round out their top six. So every trade other than Jeannot has worked out. They should have treated a franchise icon a little bit better than they did, rather than, just be upfront. If you have really no strong intention of doing this, just say it. And then, that it didn't have to get to the point it did right before July 1. And this one, there's still pages to be written. There's still a chapter in this book to be written, but if Isaac Howard goes on to be a 30 goal scorer somewhere else, you're going to look back at this and say, how did you mess this up? And, so there's still time to go before we can make that determination. But, sometimes when you have success like this, you think that your way is the best way.
Right.
because it's worked. But again, just because they've never had a college prospect of this caliber, like they've never had a Hobie Baker potential guy, let alone a guy who's a finalist and ends up going on to win it in the new age of college hockey. So it's the negotiations are different. These players are handled differently. And if you're Isaac Howard and you look at Ryan Leonard step into the Capitals lineup, as soon as he signs his contract, he's out there for one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. We've made the Makar comparison, right? He jumped right into Colorado's playoff lineup. I think he scored a goal in that game against Calgary when he jumped in the line. So these players are coming in more NHL ready. Are there things to learn? Of course there are. You have to be able to defend, but that's one of the things that they had talked about with his improvement was that he had become a better 200-foot player. He had put in the work and the dedication, and everything they asked him to work on, he worked on. So
he said that. He said that. He offered that information up. Julian did.
Well, and Stacey, I talked to Stacey Roos too for the Hockey News edition, and he mentioned the same thing about that. That it's a noticeable difference in his game this year compared to last year. So, look, there was mutual interest. And the fact that it's got to this point, I mean, we'll let it play out before we can totally judge it. But it kind of feels like it could backfire on Tampa Bay, and there's not been many things that have backfired on Julian.
What do we have up on lightninginsider.com right now, buddy?
From last night's game, how it was a playoff preview, but it wasn't a playoff preview in any way. So you kind of talked about that a little bit. I'm going to sit down here. Write a little story on Connor Geekie. Like I said, I had a chance to talk to him in length yesterday to kind of get some of his thoughts. And, the word that we heard John Cooper use was his game is mature from February. So that's a big part of being able to bring him back up and make the impact that he has. So I'm going to sit down and write that, and we'll get ready for the Rangers game tomorrow. And then we'll get ready for the fun when it all begins, presumably on Sunday, not guaranteed, but presumably on Sunday.
No stories on JJ Moser?
No. Although you could write any kind of story about JJ Moser. That guy is a very interesting person to talk to. I love.
Is he climbing the ranks? I feel like he's climbing the ranks as far as like all-time most likable Lightning players of all time.
I would say so because look, in today's day and age, it's very rare that the players seek us out.
Yeah, he's asking
right to have a conversation, just to have a conversation, right? It's a rare situation.
For those who don't know, yesterday after morning skate, JJ Moser came up to us and was asking us, "What is the hardest part about your job? Just standing around?" And then it was like, "All right, hold on." And DeAndre Lou went to go get Eric, and he was like, "All right, hold on, Eric's got to contribute to this conversation." And he was so invested. He does it all the time. He takes forever. To take his gear off after morning skate. He just loves talking.
He invites the conversation.
He does, and he's a big Man United fan. And us busting Brian Breesman's balls. Yeah, I know. Us busting Brian Breesman's balls about Arsenal and their match today against Real Madrid. They're up 3-0 on aggregate. I just saw that one of the Real Madrid players went to the stadium early today to pray outside. Oh, man, because you know what happens? If somehow, some way Real Madrid wins 4-0, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to choke artist or something. We got to send something for Breezer, but that'd be a lot of fun. Unbelievable stuff. I like your shirt, buddy. Tampa Bay Sun. Got to represent all day, every day. Erik Erlendsson, Lightning
Wish
Insider.
I could go to more of their games, but
I know.
It coincides with so many Lightning games.
No doubt about it. Erik_Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C. 2 S's after the D. Lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code. You see it right there. JNZ. Get $10 off, not just this season, but every recurring season. We'll have you locked and loaded for the first 2 playoff games, and then down in South Florida as well. The coverage will be all over the place. We got you guys. Eric, appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you next week. I'll see you this weekend.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Jay. Be well.
Thank you, buddy. You too. The one and only Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. Now, he was speaking to Connor Geek for a while yesterday in the locker room, so can't wait to read that story again. Lightninginsider.com. We always have to support local, but this is a great time of year to do so. You want to know what's going on. And with us being there, with Eric writing these stories and having these conversations with these players and being at the arena, this is the time. This is the time that you can help support a guy that's been covering the Lightning longer than everybody. And if you love your Bolts and you know there is some crazy good storylines coming out very soon. Again, lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ. $10 off, not just this season, but every recurring season as well. Follow him on social media. Again, Erik_Erlendsson. Bolts back in action tomorrow night. MSG against the New York Rangers. Final game of the season. I know the guys just got on the plane. Just saw some of the pictures. So they're en route to the Big Apple. We'll see how that whole thing turns out. And what John Cooper said yesterday, healthy. That is the most important thing. All right, let's flip the script and let's talk some baseball before we get out of here today. And we're going to bring in our guy, Gabe Rincones. Look at the hat. Tampa representing through and through, my guy. Gabe, what's going on, brother? How are you?
How you doing, Jay?
Oh, man, doing well, buddy. Listen, we've been following you ever since the plant days. And then now being able to see, it's just like every single time I check on you, bro, you're 3 for 5 here. You're 2 for 5 here. You're hitting dingers here. You're driving in runs. I mean, what a crazy journey that you have been on. Let's go back to the days here in the Tampa Bay area. And listen, you played for one of the best programs here in the Bay over with Coach Braun and Plant. But the first 2 years, I mean, it was a tough journey for you, but you stayed with it. What was that like, the beginning of your high school career? How did you stay with it and prove like, hey, even though I didn't make the team the first couple of seasons, I'm not going to be denied?
I mean, it sucked for sure, but it was more out of there's no way that I can't do it. You know, like the fact that I wanted to play, the fact that I wanted to, not only because I liked baseball, but I had, I could tell there's a lot of people that didn't think I could do it, and that was enough for me to, want to get better, and I was really just bitter. I was angry. I was kind of a bitter, angry kid the first 2 years, just because I knew that I could do it, but I didn't have the talent or the skill or whatever I needed at the time to be the player that I wanted to be. And I still kind of play like that because obviously you're never really at where you want to be. But back then it was really like a fire that I just couldn't really put out. So whatever inch I could get, it was motivation for me that I was on the right track. Even the slightest bit of improvement when I did get to even dress out one time, it was something that I was just super happy to even the slightest bit of someone saying, dude, you've gotten so much better, or oh like dude,
Right.
you've gotten so much bigger, or whatever it was. It was just a little bit more encouraging to up until where I am at right now.
So when you finally got that chance and you started playing and getting those opportunities, how did you keep that chip on your shoulder then, right? It was just continuously, did you keep that on you? Did you keep that like, all right, well, there's still people that probably doubt me out here. And that's what kind of motivated you, whether it's in the gym or in the cages?
Yeah, no, even to this day, I'll go look for stuff. I'll go talk
I
smack
love
to
it.
whoever. Justin Crawford, one of the fastest guys in baseball.
Mhm.
I'll go tell him, and I'm gonna steal more bags than him, and then that'll lead to like him saying, "Nah, man, you're slow," blah blah blah, and that's enough for me to even take that part and say, "Oh, he thinks that I'm slow. All right, I'm actually gonna go steal more bags than him." Obviously, the odds are stacked against me on that one. The kid freaking flies. He doesn't run, but that's how I'd rather play with a chip on my shoulder than to be, at the top of my game, or at the top of my game for where I'm at right now, thinking that I don't need to get better. It's not really going to help me improve. So, um, if being a little dissatisfied is going to seem like I'm a little unhappy at the time, I'd rather play like that than to be, on the other half.
Right, no doubt. At what point did you know that playing pro ball was a possibility? Because the journey was obviously, as a kid when you're growing up, everybody wants to be a big leaguer, everybody wants to play minors, you want to be in spring training, you want to do all these different things. Was there a certain point along the way that you knew like, hey man, like I everything that I'm putting into this is going to give me an opportunity to really to be able to play pro ball? Was there something that clicked? Was there a moment? Was there a game? Anything like that?
Um, I mean, there were. So this is weird because even when I got cut from from plant, I've always had the belief, and I would tell myself that I can be the player I want. I could play in the big leagues. I have what it takes to be whatever it is. But obviously, when the things look very bleak at the time that you're saying it to yourself, and you're trying to, you know, convince yourself that you are what you're saying you are before other people start believing that, it was more so of like a uh, encouragement to actually start doing the things that I was saying back in 2017.
Right.
And then now people telling me that I am super talented and you have a good career ahead of you. And it's just like, it's kind of mind blowing to me when I first started hearing stuff like that. I'm like, oh shoot, like the stuff I was saying to myself is actually, coming true. This is awesome.
You spoke it into existence, man.
Sorta, yeah.
Yeah. Who was there with you during those tough times, man? Who do you credit? Because it's easy. Everybody wants to, oh yeah, I remember that guy win. But who was there when you were at some of your darkest times? Who was there riding with you, supporting you, even when things weren't going as well?
The Lord our God Jesus Christ, man. Like without God in my life, I definitely wouldn't be able to do all the stuff that I've done. I definitely wouldn't have. I don't know. Who knows where I'd be if I didn't have Jesus in my life. I mean, my parents have always been there for me, even though they're still over in Scotland. I mean, as far as like support wise, my family was always there for me, but I wasn't really the type to talk about what I was going through. So, um, you know, they could only do so much. Where if I want to do something that I haven't been able to do, I have to go out and do it in order to actually get the help I want.
Yeah, you got to
Um,
be able to take the bull by the horns yourself, and then be
exactly.
able to make this life as big as you wanted it to be. You got drafted the first time. Was there any thought process of like, hey, I'm gonna go? This is, or were you just like, nah, this is, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna bet on myself again to try to get drafted higher, and eventually did.
I had asked for my number was like 800,000,
Mhm.
and I remember everybody telling me like, dude, no JUCO player gets paid. Like, don't settle for whatever they're giving you in 18. I think it was like 19th round. You should take it. And then I was like, if my number was 800, but I go and take something that's way below that, what type of not only what type of player am I, what type of man am I to go back on my word? Now I
Right.
gotta bite the bullet, and if I'm bold enough to say that I'm worth 800 at wherever, if my number was 800, why not go and take the chance at FAU? And also, I didn't want to go to FAU. I was set on playing pro ball from plant. I
Yeah.
wanted to go play plant. I didn't want to go to school. I don't, you know. I went to junior college, not because it was like, oh, I can go to any D1 because I
Right.
only had one offer going to St. Pete, but it was
Mhm.
like, oh, I get to be drafted even after my first year. I can go get drafted, but then I have to, uh, kind of put my ego in check and say, well, things aren't the way I wanted them. Things didn't go the way I wanted them to go.
Right.
I mean, I had done everything I thought I needed to do in order to get drafted where I wanted, and that was really, I was really punched in the gut because I was so invested in that draft, thinking that I had done everything I needed, and
Where did you think you were
that
going?
say what?
Where did you think you were going in that draft?
Oh, dude, I mean, I asked a certain scout. I was like, "What?" This is before the year even started. I said, "What do I need to do in order to be a top 3 round pick?"
Right.
And he's like, "Go be the best player in the state. Go win that award. Go go be the best player in Florida." And I tweeted out on Twitter before season started. I was like, "I'm gonna be the national junior college player
Yeah.
of the year." And I mean, I didn't get that, but I got player of the year for Florida, and I hit 400 and all this stuff. And me thinking I'm on top of the world, thinking I did everything by my own accord. And looking back on it now, I'm glad I didn't get that. Regardless of what I did, that was the year before I gave my life to Christ. So when I put God first, everything that I had wanted previously was given to me.
Everything got prioritized for you, didn't it? It's pretty wild, man. Are you off? Are you off Twitter now? Because I try to find you. I remember following you on Twitter. Are you gone? Are you off?
I think I changed my handle, but it's like Gabe Rincones, but I delete it every now and every now and then I check it, but
Yeah,
Twitter is a crazy place.
it is, man. Going down that
I
rabbit hole because I
prefer
remember I
being
followed
off
you
of
since high
it.
school. I think. All right, so you get drafted by the Phillies, man. You get where you want to be. You know, big third round pick there. What's that been like being in that system? And talk to me about spring training this year and just being around some of those big players. Oh, I think we froze. What? Hold on, buddy.
You said what?
Sorry. Talk to
Hello?
me about spring training this year, and just being around some of those, big players, and being so close, man. You're crushing it right now at AAA. Hold on. Service issues here. Cancel. You there? Good.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. Okay, now we're good. Sorry. All right. Yeah, just asking you about getting drafted by the Phillies and what that whole situation was like. And obviously it's great because you have spring training in Clearwater, and not too far from home. But what was that like this year? Being around some of the guys getting ready for the regular season.
Dude, I mean, it was seeing some of those guys in person after seeing them on TV for so long, or being in the same lineup as them, or being in the same like BP times on the field and watching them hit, and then having them watch you hit on the field, or just having interactions with them. It's like, I mean, it's just super dope because you, if I would have told you 6 years ago that I would be doing that stuff, I mean, even though regardless of what I said back then, I would be like, all right, like I'm here. I don't know what. Maybe it does happen. Doubt it happens. Whatever. But then to actually be doing that, it's like, hey, dude, like you're right there. Like you're with them. Like go learn from them and see what you can get, so that you can one day be seen by others like you're seeing them right now. So definitely is a surreal experience.
Who were some of the guys that were giving you advice?
Schwarber, Kevin Long, the hitting coach, and him. They helped me with my routine that I'm still doing, and I'm trying to, roll that out the whole year. Um, and I mean, I would ask Bohm questions, Castellanos questions. Um, I was in the lineup against the Jays at their place, and it was like almost every single like big guy on there. It was Turner's in the lineup, Stott, like
Mm-hmm.
Harper, Bohm, uh, Schwarber, and I'm over there hitting 9-hole, and I'm just like, heck yeah. Like, and then I go and I hit a homer, and I'm like, this is sick.
That's great. What was that like to be able to circle the bases? You touch home plate, and then you see those guys welcoming it and celebrating with you. That had to be a surreal moment.
I'm like, damn straight, hey, let's go. That's what I'm talking about, bro. This is what I envision. This is what I daydream about, Like this is stuff that where I'm zoning out, and like in school where I'm zoning out and I'm thinking about stuff like scenario like that. Um, I mean, it's like a fever dream. It's like a freaking daydream that you're making up in your head. So, and then you realize that you can actually make that an everyday thing. So now you just gotta be disciplined and go through the ups and downs so that you can make that a reality every day.
Yeah, I guess that's the big thing is like now that you're knowing that you're so close to being able to be there in the big leagues, how do you not like try to reach too far or look too far ahead? How do you stay grounded, right? Knowing that like everything will take care of itself as long as I continue to kind of put my best foot forward and just focus on the daily process.
Well, that's kind of the whole thing with baseball. It's you have a great day and you go to reach for more and then you get your ass kicked, you know? So it's the same. It's the same concept. It's like don't do too much. You do the little things, and big things will happen. And that's I say that now, but that's something that when you're out on the diamond, you kind of forget, and then you have to remind yourself of doing that again. Try not to spin out, whether it be your 0 for whatever or your 4 for 4, and you have your fifth AB. Did you clock out in your fourth hit, or are you going up there looking to go 5 for 5? So that's constant. It's a battle. It's a constant battle of wanting and like having that water be lukewarm and not too hot or too cold.
I think that's the thing that I've seen across all of professional athletes and coaches. It's the even keel, right? It's you never want to get too high, you never want to get too low. Who can kind of be that calm when the storm is raining down? And I just, I think the more and more we talk about it, it just seems like being grounded in your faith really has helped you, not just as a baseball player, but as a man to kind of navigate through the waters of life. Is that fair to say?
100%. And Christ is the ultimate mediator of your everyday even keel. Like he's the one that can make the water just right. But if you're not in His Word every day, you're only as good as what you're capable of doing. And to be honest, I ain't worth a crap without God. Like He's the one that puts me on the right path. He's the one that, takes care of my troubles. And I could say, yeah, I did that, I did this. I didn't do nothing. I'm just here, and I'm being a vessel for His glory, or being a vessel for His word is way bigger than what I could do on my own. And I mean, if I would give advice to anybody, if I have a really good game, I gotta open up my Bible. If I have a really bad game, I gotta open up my Bible, because that's what keeps you grounded. And there's nothing worse in baseball or in life when you're just not grounded. You're susceptible to getting blindsided and getting put on your butt. And He keeps you grounded so that doesn't happen.
No doubt about it. All right, before I let you go, we got to say one nice thing about JD Urso, because he's the one that connected us and the Urso family. I coached JD when he was like 7 or 8 years old, man. Known the Urso family for damn near 20 years. What is it like to be friends with him and being around the Urso clan?
I mean, they're top tier people. JD is my brother. Like, I haven't asked him yet, but he'll probably find out soon. He's gonna be one of my best men at my
Nice.
wedding. And I wouldn't trade anything for our friendship and friendship with his family as well. Like I said, I mean, and if anybody that knows the Ursos knows that they're amazing people.
Salt of the earth people, just like you, my friend Gabe. You and your story, it is so inspirational to everybody here in the Tampa Bay area. We've been following you. I remember the plant days, and I remember days when it was like, well, yeah, Rincones did this. He had 3 hits. He had 4 hits. I'm like, Jesus, this kid just rolls out of bed and he can freaking hit. But Gabe, so proud of you, man. And you just keep doing your thing. You're so grounded. I love to see what you're doing as a baseball player, but I love even more to see how grounded you are and how level-headed you are as a man. And yeah, man, just keep doing your thing. Thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck today and the rest of the week and the rest of the season. And we'll see you in the bigs before we know it, my friend. Thank you. Talk soon.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you.
All right, buddy. Good stuff. Gabe Rincones, man. That's what it's all about, man. People like that. We always talk about athletes and we talk about sports and we glorify all of the people that probably don't deserve it, because what they do, it doesn't always come with the truest of intentions. Gabe is one of those guys, man. A true story of perseverance, a true story of never giving up, ever giving up. He's the best, man. I can't wait. Listen to those stories. Can you imagine that? Think about that. And I know you may not be a Phillies fan. Of course, I'm not. All right. But think about that. You're a guy that bet on yourself. You're a guy that, got cut from the high school team twice and you wouldn't give in. And I just remember seeing him play, watching people tell me about him, and he just got better and better and better, and he's a freaking monster. Think about a kid like that. You have dreams of being a big league ball player. You hit a home run in spring training, and you come around the bases, and there's Trey Turner, and there's Alec Boehm, and there's Bryce Harper, and there's Nick Castellanos. Like, man, that is another great story of great things happening to great people. And, a big thank you for Gabe for joining me on the show. Big thank you to JD Urso for helping set that up. You can see above right here, UT. A lot of love for the entire Urso fam. Love you guys so much. Yeah, that's what we do here on the Jay Recher podcast. This is what sets us apart from everybody else. It's not the same old bullshit. It's not the same old stories that everybody's going to talk about. We're going to talk about stuff that nobody else is talking about here on the program. Not the same old topic A. We're talking about everything. Just think about all the different things that we spoke about on the program already. Rays, we talked Lightning, we talked Bucks, we talk about a kid that played high school ball here in the Tampa Bay area at the AAA level for the Philadelphia Phillies. When you see him get called up, you're going to be so happy if you're a person who lives in the Tampa area, but you're also going to be happy because you have the knowledge of what this kid has been through. Parents living in Scotland. He's here in the Bay Area. Great stuff. A big thank you to Gabe Rincones and JD Urso. All right. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Shout out to our Rowdies U.S. Open Cup action at 7 o'clock tonight against FC Naples, the battle. Leo Fernandez, Gustavo Fernandez, the Fernandez brother, going at it there down in Southwest Florida. That should be a good game. Check them out, Paramount Plus as well, in the Golasso Network. Rays in action tonight against the Red Sox Lightning tomorrow. We're not going to talk about what happened to USF Baseball last night. Nope, and nope, and nope even more. Bad. One of the worst games of the year for any team in the Tampa Bay area. Rough. Lightning, again, tomorrow night, final regular season game, and then home this weekend, hopefully Sunday, Tuesday, and then have a better idea of when they're going to be in South Florida. But bet your bottom dollar that we will be there. Erik Erlendsson, Eddie Encina, and myself. Beckles and Recher podcast coming up at 3 o'clock today, right here on the YouTube channel. We're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Kevin Durant, a couple of different things on the program. So make sure you join us at 3 o'clock. We will be live at the Dignitary Cafe, 4817 Southwest Shore Boulevard. I love you all. A big thank you to all of my guests on the program today, including Neil Solondz, Erik Erlendsson, and Gabe Rincones, and also for you tuning in to the program. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher